This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and Ramdas.org. Hi, I'm Raghu Marcus. Now, here we were in the middle of our mountain retreat, perched on that hill. It was amazing, actually. The whole horizon was filled with these 27 to 29,000 foot peaks. It was just marvelous. I mean, in the morning, it was a rainy season, so in the morning, the clouds, as they would lift, we would just have this darshan. It was just staggering. It's incredible. Now, we had this major collective strange experience after being there for a few weeks. And as many of you know, Ram Dass gave Maharaji acid twice. Both times nothing happened. The second time he gave it because Ram Dass thought that he didn't actually take it. So he carefully put it on his tongue, and nothing happened again. But he did say it was good for spiritual beginners, and it gave you Christ darshan for a few hours. But then you had to leave. And he said one should take it alone and in a cold climate. So various people thought, this would be a perfect place up here in the Himalayas. So one day one of the Westerners took some acid, but he wanted to do it with Ram Dass. He wanted to trip with him, and Ram Dass agreed. So happened that I lived in a room above this guy where they were tripping, and I started to hear very strange noises coming from his room below after they had gone in there together. And this may sound strange, I had a small hole in my floorboard, and I could actually see through down into the room below. And when I looked, I just couldn't stop myself from looking. I saw this crazy scene where Ram Dass was lying down on the floor, but he was moving his arms as if he was flying and making the most insane, otherworldly, guttural sounds. He later said he was surfing the universe like the Silver Surfer. Boy, oh boy. Now, many of us on those 2 floors of the building started to hear this crazy stuff coming from that room, and we gravitated towards the room where this was going on. And we all ended up sitting with Ram Dass and sort of plugging into the energy of his energy and this other guy. And all of us got off on that trip. I mean, it was contact high supreme, let me tell you. It lasted for about a week. I mean, we used to go to the dining room together. I mean, we're talking about, 15, 18 people. And we used to sit there and eat in silence like perfect sadhus. But now when we ate, we would sit in silence, bless the food, look up at each other, and burst out laughing. It was a crazy scene. It was so crazy that one of us, actually the energy was a bit much for him. He ended up impersonating Ram Dass and went to see Lama Govinda, a famous Buddhist scholar of that time who wrote many wonderful books, actually, and went to visit him and said he was Ram Dass. Then he went and gave a lecture at a church. And then he went, gee, I got to see Maharaji and show him all my powers. I mean, he was just so activated by Shakti, it was unbelievable. When he got to Maharaji, Maharaji looked at him, said, get over here. He went over to them, and he had a beard at the time. And Maharaji took that beard and pulled it. And as he described it later, it was as if every molecule of energy was drained out of him in that moment. That was just one little offshoot of that crazy experience. But, in the end, as crazy as it was, we experienced an at oneness with each other that went beyond words. I mean, it's not something I would recommend to anybody or to a group of people to do as part of their sadhana, but it gave us some kind of understanding beyond the words. And it reminded us when Maharaji would say, every day we'd walk in there to the ashram, he'd point a finger in the air and he'd say Sab Ek in Hindi. which means it's all one. It's all one.
Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Ye are the living temples of God. I and my Father are one. There is one alone, and there is not a second. And we, if we only know, are eternally it. From a fortune cookie, the wild geese do not intend to cast their reflections. The water has no mind to receive their image. Wild geese do not intend to cast their reflections. The water has no mind to receive their image. If you knew who you are, and I know who I am, when you add all of us up, you come to the number one. If you and I were being who we truly are, there would only be one of us here. One awareness, one consciousness, all these bodies like fingers and toes. And from our oneness, from our niche in the wall where the candle flame never flickers when the wind blows, from this inner place where we all are eternally, we would watch the drama taking place at 77th Street and 3rd Avenue. We would watch he who speaks and they who listen. And as we looked into each of them, some of them would know that though they are speaking, they are not speaking, and though they are listening, they are not listening. And others wouldn't know that, and would see they're really busy listening. They think they are he who is listening. They really think they walked in here, sat down, and they're listening. I am listening. I want to know. And from our place of one consciousness, we would feel great compassion. Great compassion. For I am the wild goose, and I have no intention to cast my reflection. There is speaking happening, and maybe it's hard for you to understand, or maybe there is a place in you that understands when I say, though I am speaking, I am not speaking. Though I am here, I am not here. Inside of me is going on a mantra that reminds me who I really am, over and over again. And from this inner place where this mantra is going on, even as I speak to you, I'm just watching with great awe, wonder, the awesome drama of nature unfold before my very eye. Before my eye. Before that inner eye which sees all and knows all. The drama that is this drama. This drama. And on inside goes Om Mane Padme Hum Aum Mane Padme Hum Aum Mane Padme Hum Aum Mane Padme. Always bringing me right to my heart, where I dwell eternally. But now we came here all laden with games, laden with our dramatic roles. I mean, we've all learned our parts so well. We're masters at playing our parts. I'm a serious young student. I really want to know. I'm a woman. I'm the Earth Mother. I'm a responsible member of this society. I'm young and impressionable. I'm really confused, man. I'm all screwed up. I'm pretty happy. I just want to hear what the scene's about. I'm a holy man. Those are the parts that are available for the evening. Pick your part. There's only one of us. We've got to play all these parts. That's all right. Don't get uptight. We have multitudinous forms. We can be the bus driver on 3rd Avenue, the North Vietnamese in the woods, we haven't begun tonight to dig who we can be. We're just moving slowly. So we play our parts, but let's not forget that these are just parts we've taken on for this particular drama. But we came in here bearing our parts because we've learned them so well. I mean, you've been sitting home practicing your part. You were taught your script. Mother, father, coaches, you've had extraordinary coaches. Taught you your parts so well. So that you are an exquisite response mechanism. Feed in, out comes. I used to do a questionnaire when I was a psychologist called Who Am I? List 5 things of who am I. Answer the question. Give it to a junior high school student. I am Carol Brown. I am in the 8th grade. I am a girl. I am an American. I am going to become a nurse. 5 answers to who am I. Give it to a Harvard senior. Who am I? I am man. I am a biological complex. I am a point in time and space. I am David Smith. I am 21. Give it to an Indian saint. Who am I? I am God. I am eternal. I am. Blank, blank. How can we get here and now, this evening, turn off all of our dramatic parts, or let's let them run on? I mean, you can run on being who you've been, but let's just not get hung up in them. Let's be here together. How do we do that? Well, we have been going through a procedure of purification, which is useful, quite helpful. And we call upon a being who I will explain later to you about where he lives. This being is called Guru Rinpoche, or Padmasambhava. And Padmasambhava was the man who introduced Buddhism to Tibet, and this is a very important period in Padmasambhava's influence for us. He is depicted in these tanka reproductions on either side. And in order to call upon Padmasambhava to bring us here and now, you will do the following. You will imagine Padmasambhava, who is sitting on a lotus in the middle of a lake. And you will imagine him directly out from the middle of your eyebrows, and then go up about a 30-degree angle and imagine him out there, just a little above your head, out there. He is entirely made up of light. He sits on a throne It is the sun throne of wisdom, and he is the eternal child who sits there. In his right hand he holds the lightning bolt of the method of becoming eternal, the upaya. And in his left he holds the cup, which is filled with ambrosia. It's filled with moksha, filled with bliss. He has cut off the heads of aversion, attachment, and confusion, and he wears them as ornaments on his trident, which he holds to his side as his consort. He sits unmoving in meditation. He chants Hum and Fum, drunk upon highest happiness. The Buddhas of the past, present, and the future shine forth through the pores of his skin. His youthful smile is full of compassion. Victory is his crown. Imagining now this being of pure light out in front of us, with eyes closed, you will first need to purify your body and mind before you can invite Guru Rinpoche into your hridayam, or spiritual heart. The first thing you're going to get rid of is roga and ruga, which are disease and attachment. In order to get rid of all of the physical hang-ups and all of the attachments to your melodrama that keep you from being here and now, you will breathe all these things out, and they're going to come out a dark red. And they will come out of your right nostril when you, now, if you are not tuned in on astral vision at this point, you may not see the dark red just yet. But you can imagine it. You will breathe 3 times out the right nostril, and each time imagine you're breathing out all of the physical hang-ups and all of the attachments that keep you stuck. Right, 3 times. And now out the left nostril, a blue-gray in color, you will breathe out mental obstacles and anger. Think of all the people that got you hung up today, got you uptight. All the people that angered you, all the people you still get angry when you think about. And get that anger into you. Really think about them until you're really angry. And then breathe it all out, a kind of a blue-gray out the left nostril. Okay? 3 times out the left nostril. You should have a fan to clear away all those vibrations. And then out the mouth, purple in color, 3 times you will breathe out sloth, inertia, the heaviness, the stone-like quality, tamasya, all the qualities that keep you from getting on with it, all that kind of 3 times purple out the mouth. Now imagining Guru Rinpoche sitting out there on his lotus. Imagine coming from his ajna, the point right between his eyebrows, a beam of white light that comes directly to your ajna, a beam that burns right into you, and it burns out all of the physical impurities. It just keeps working on the physical impurities. Feel it burn through you. Om. And then from his ajna, the same place, to your throat, a red beam which burns out of you all untruths, all lies, all wrongness of speech. Ah. And then a blue beam that comes from his spiritual heart to your spiritual heart, your hridayam. And this blue beam burns out all impurities of thought, all the thoughts that keep you from being an enlightened being, from knowing who you truly are. Hong. And now let that blue beam become a broad blue avenue, and down that avenue comes Guru Rinpoche himself. Pure light, pure love, pure awareness, pure energy, total wisdom, absolute power. And he comes into your own heart, and he resides there. And when you know who you truly are, you and he are one. You are composed of pure love, pure light, pure energy, pure wisdom, infinite power. And his mantra is Aum Ahung Vajra Guru Padme Siddhi Hung. 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 Aum is the unmanifest. Aum is the eternal, formless, the void. Aum is what lies behind all. Aum. Ah is the imminence for manifestation. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And the sound which is later to turn into form, the imminent is Ah. Hung the manifest. Hung manifest. All of the forms in the universe are Hung, Hum, Om, Ah, Hum. Vajra lightning bolt. 3 in 1. The 3-in-1 lightning bolt, Vajra Guru. The lightning bolt, wisdom, Guru, wisdom. Om Ahung Vajra Guru Padme. Padme means lotus, and it also means unbearable compassion. The 3-in-1 lightning bolt, Guru of wisdom inside you, of unbearable compassion, Siddhi of infinite power. Hung is manifest, Hung heart is manifest in my heart. Om Ahung Vajra Guru Padme Siddhi Hung. The 3-in-1, the unmanifest, the immanent, and the manifest, All are Padmasambhava, and they are made up of unbearable compassion when they view the form and the three in one is infinite power, and it all resides in my very heart. And if I can go within to my own heart, to my spiritual heart, my hridayam, I will then know I am He. I am He. I am He. It is from this place in our heart cave where we now are that we watch the entire drama that is our lives. We watch the illusion with unbearable compassion. Compassion meaning empathy, meaning a true understanding of how it is. A kind of empathy you can only have when you have quieted your mind down enough and transcended your ego enough so you can hear how it really is. So when you are with a candle flame, you are the candle flame. When you're with another being's mind, you are the other being's mind. When there is a task to do, you are the task. The mindless quality of total involvement that only comes when the ego is quieted and there is no attachment. It is only when you reside quietly in your own hridayam that you become He of total light, unbearable compassion, and infinite power. Had ye but faith, ye could move mountains, said Yesu. And that is literally true. The Bible is not a metaphor, it's not a story made up to teach us how to be moral beings. It's a straight message of how it is when man lives in the Spirit. And the Spirit is right inside, and in order to get into the Spirit is not a whole lot of hocus pocus. It's a very simple, methodical, mechanical set of steps, but they are only available to him who can hear. Let those who have ears hear. Teach not he who does not want to know. The whole game is based on faith. What you may not perhaps understand is the whole game you've been playing thus far is also based on faith. You have had faith in your senses. You have had faith in your rational mind. We are living in a society which is a total temple dedicated to the rational man. Even though the first commandment says, there is only one God, thou shalt take no other God but me. Even though that's said, and we repeat it, we still worship the rational man. We worship our own sense data. It's only when you see the assumptions you've already been functioning on that you can start to extricate yourself. You have got to have heard the first message before any of the keys open anything, because you don't even know there are doors until you heard the first message. Georges Gurdjieff, who was a Westerner who went this entire trip, or at least a large part of it, He said, "You don't seem to understand. You are in prison." He said, "If you were to get out of prison, the first thing you must realize is you're in prison. If you think you're free, you can't escape." See the problem? If you think you're free, you can't escape. There's another way of saying it. If you think the games you have going are what lead to what it is you're seeking in life, forget it. Forget this trip entirely. What is required for this trip, what is required to go within, to except ye become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven, to go the entire trip again, you have to have experienced despair. You have to have experienced a giving up of the faith in the systems you've had going thus far. It's a necessary prerequisite. It's a necessary prerequisite.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. We appreciate all the support for the foundation and for Ram Dass's work, and we hope that you will continue that support. You can go to ramdas.org and click on the Donate Now button and follow the prompts. Thank you. This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. Hi, I'm Raghu Marcus.
In the middle of this retreat at the Gandhi ashram, the monsoon had arrived. Anytime we go anywhere, we end up removing giant leeches from our legs and feet. It was quite lovely. Anyhow, I suddenly realized that my passport's about to expire and I need to go to Delhi to get it renewed. So happens that I had a contact for the Canadian High Commission through my boss at the radio station in Montreal, where I had met Ram Dass. So off I go to Delhi, and on the way through the foothills, I stopped to see Maharaji at the ashram in Kenchi. And I arrive. There's no other Westerners there. In fact, there's hardly anybody there. He's sitting on his tucket with just a couple of Indian people and asks me if I am married. And I say cleverly, I thought, "No, I just want to marry God." Well, that brought a huge laugh from him and the Indians around him. It was quite embarrassing, actually. And then he said to me, "Did you have darshan of a Tibetan Lama?" I said, "No, I've never even met a Tibetan, never mind a Lama." He said, "You didn't just have darshan of a Tibet Lama and he gave you teachings?" I thought he meant the Buddhist meditation teacher who was supposed to come to Kosani to teach the group, but he said, "Nay, that's not it. Tibet Lama." So after the big jow from Maharaji that day, I left for Delhi and I was invited to the High Commissioner's house for lunch. When I met him, I had heard about Canada had been letting in Tibetan refugees, and I asked him about it. He suddenly turned to the side, and walking through a door with a retinue of Tibetan monks in red robes was Kalu Rinpoche, one of the greatest lamas of the last century. I knew about him, and I stood there in shock as I remembered the day before Maharaji asking me if I had met a Tibetan Lama. So stunned as I was, off we went for lunch in this ornate, huge dining room, and I sat exactly across from Kalu and next to some Canadian journalists who were there to interview him for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Well, they invited me to be with them while they interviewed him in an adjacent room. Well, they were interviewing him, and they were asking maybe a little bit dumb questions like, what did he think about Christianity? And he said, "I wouldn't know anything about Christianity." And then they asked me to ask something. As soon as that happened, he sat bolt upright in his chair and totally connected to me with his eyes. And I asked about how it seemed so easy to meditate in the mountains where I had been. But now coming to the city, I couldn't find my balance, my center. I said, do you need to stay in the mountains to feel that same space? And he said, absolutely not. He told me the story of the 7 siddhas of ancient India, all who became realized through their work, whether it was weaving or pottery or stone making. And this went on for about 30 minutes, where I received this Lama's teachings. It was amazing. I mean, I was in one moment just completely blown away by this Lama and these teachings, and then all the time through that was just this hovering over me was, oh my God, he knew exactly what was going to happen to me today. Let me say, I walked out of there in a state, it was kind of like I had taken a hit of acid. I couldn't believe what had happened. My mind was truly blown. And honestly, I was never the same again.
One of the beings who has written a very useful book at one stage of one's journey is Uspensky, who was a student of Gurdjieff and a philosopher in his own right. And he said, and he explained on page 5 why it is that he isn't a realized being. Although I don't think he meant to say it quite that way. And he's describing different schools and what they taught, different secret schools. And he says, there was another type of school with which I was unable to make contact and of which I only heard. These schools promised very much, but they also demanded very much. They demanded everything at once. It would have been necessary to stay in India and give up thoughts of returning to Europe, to renounce all my own ideas, aims, and plans, and proceed along a road of which I could know nothing beforehand. These schools interested me very much, and the people who had been in touch with them and who told me about them stood out distinctly from the common type. But still it seemed to me that there ought to be schools of a more rational kind, and that a man had the right, up to a certain point, to know where he was going. That a man had the right, up to a certain point, to know where he was going. go by, these are huge amounts of energy. Just pass the energy through you. Right, and you pass it up your spine, and it really blows your mind if you do it right. It's gratuitous energy handed to you. Free trip. Courtesy of... See, Ouspensky wasn't willing to do that one thing, to give up knowing he knew. And the funny thing about the rational mind is it's taken us so far, and then it becomes the lion at the gates. It's so seductive, it looks like it's going to give us the whole business. And then, lo and behold, it holds us back at a certain point. Because we are so rewarded for knowing we know, and it's only when you come to the despair that seeing, when you look around at where man has gotten with his rational mind, and you suddenly understand that he's just going from the frying pan into the fire. And you look at the Herculean task that he has outlined for himself, and you realize that his rational mind just isn't going to be enough. I mean, you add up all the, quote, intellectuals in the world. Who do you want to put the man's destiny in? Whose hands? Herman Kahn? I don't. Who? I mean, I can't find a model. I don't see wise men. I see rational, super rationalists, McGeorge Bundy. Super rationalists, exquisite minds. But as Einstein said, when atomic energy was released for man's control and benefit, he said man must develop a higher form of thought if he is ever going to be able to use this energy with wisdom. Because his rational mind's not going to do it. It's not going to be enough. That's the despair. That's the despair. All the eggs, all the basket we put the eggs in just isn't going to make the trip to grandmother's house. It's just not going to do it. And the answer, strangely enough, is in the simple words here and now. If you could be here and now, if you could for one moment turn off your mind, see, you don't have to listen to this lecture like you're doing. You don't have to be evaluating, categorizing, thinking about it, putting it away in storage units, analyzing the words to make sure you understand them. You can let it all go through you, just like Chinese food, and just let it go through and you'll understand it all, because there's nothing I'm saying to you that there isn't a place in you where you already know it. Now, I'm going to have to move slowly till you understand what I just told you. But you can trust. That's the first requirement, trust, you see. You've got to give up that kind of thing. You've got to give up the reaching for it to have it. As long as you reach, you can't have it. This whole trip that I'm talking about is fraught with paradoxes. The most exquisite paradoxes. As soon as you give it all up, you can have it all. How about that one? As long as you want power, you can't have it. The minute you don't want power, you'll have more than you ever dreamed possible. What a weird thing. What a weird thing. As long as you have an ego, you're on a limited trip. You're on a little trivial trip that's going to last roughly 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. Fraught with fear of its end, trying to make its own eternity, eternal name by leaving a stone building, perhaps. something in me must die and something new must be born. He that is born of the flesh is of the flesh. He that is born of the Spirit is of the Spirit. Unless ye be born again, ye cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. We're talking about a metamorphosis. We're talking about going from the caterpillar to the moth. We're talking about how to become butterflies. How do we become butterflies? I mean, the caterpillar that's walking around doesn't say, well, man, soon I'll be a moth. Because as long as he's being busy being a caterpillar, he can't be a moth. It's only when caterpillarness is done that one starts to become a moth. And that, again, is part of this paradox. You can't rip away caterpillarness. The whole trip occurs in an unfolding process over which you have no control. That's a hard one. Well, what am I doing here if I have no control? You mean I don't have any choice? Can I say this is nonsense? Can I say this is important? Your lecture changed my whole life. You think that's choice? You think that's choice? No. Not at all. It's an unfolding process. If you could stand back far enough and watch the whole process, you would see that you are a totally determined being. The moment you will wake up is totally determined. How long you will stay asleep is totally determined. What you will hear of what I say is totally determined. There are no accidents in this business at all. Accidents are just from where you're looking at it from. To the ego, it all looks like it's miracles and accidents. No miracles, no accidents. Just your vantage point you're sort of stuck in. Before I proceed, I want to advise you that when you leave here this evening, whoever it is that leaves, you will be offered, which you may accept or not as you choose, an additional crutch to help you with your work, which will be a reproduction of this tanka of Padmasambhava. I met a tulku, a very high incarnation, a Tibetan incarnation in Sarnath in India. And he had brought this tanka from Tibet, and he was very interested in having this tanka, having Guru Rinpoche available to people in the West at this time. And so he and I together shared the expense and involvement of having these reproduced. It's very, very beautiful reproduction. And they are not for sale, they are priceless. You are given one. And may I just enjoin you, if you're going to take one, don't take it unless you feel it in your heart. But if you would like Guru Rinpoche's help by your puja table or by your meditation cove or wherever it is that you cool yourself out from the life drama, Guru Rinpoche should be hung slightly at 30 degrees above, right? And then he'll watch out for things. He'll keep you cool. He's quite a gas, and you can read about him. He's written about in books. He did some far things. Well, if I am not speaking, if I am not what I thought I am, how did I get into this predicament, and who am I? For only when I know who I am will I know what is possible. And furthermore, I can ask the question, how will I know who I am? There are three ways in which one knows about what we are talking about this evening. One way you know about it is by direct experience. Through some way or other, through being alone in the desert, through falling in love, through bearing a child, through nearly dying or some other trauma, through turning on, through yoga, through taking any one of your senses and pushing it to beyond itself, going through it, you have touched a place inside yourself that has an intuitive validity. It's intuitively valid. Inside you know it's right. Many of you had an experience. I've been with literally now, perhaps over 100 people who have had an experience which was powerful and valid. It was so discontinuous with their normal consciousness that it scared them so badly that they screamed for help, and the help that was available to them were a group of minds which said, "That's all right, you have just gone crazy." That is, the experience you've just had is the experience of psychosis. William James said, "Our normal waking consciousness is but one form of consciousness, whilst all about it, parted from it by the filmiest of veils, screens, there lie other types of consciousness entirely different. We may pass through our entire lives without suspecting their existence, but apply the requisite stimulus, and at a touch, they are there in all their completeness. Special types of mentality, each probably somewhere having its field of application and adaptation. No view of the universe in its totality can be complete which leaves these other forms of consciousness quite disregarded. But how to regard them is the question. They determine attitudes, though they fail to furnish a formula. They open regions, though they do not give a map. At any rate, concludes James, they forbid our premature closing of our accounts with reality. Said that somewhere around probably 1906, something like that. In spite of what he said, we've closed our accounts with reality, most of us. That experience you had is psychotic. I will give you Thorazine. It is not valid. You are hallucinating. What do you mean you're God? What do you mean you're God? What do you mean you're God? The experience may have come to you directly that way, or it may have come to you through inference. Through your intellect, you may have reasoned and reasoned and reasoned until you saw the peculiar position that rational man is in, and you realize there must be something else. Although you've not experienced it, you just infer the presence of something else. It doesn't quite make sense. Nothing turns you on. You haven't experienced it directly, but you figure there must be something there. I mean, you read all of the writings of St. John of the Cross and Teresa and on, all of the mystics and visionaries through recorded history, and you say, well, they can't all be nuts. They must be talking about something. So you sort of infer the presence of this other thing, but you don't know about it. Now that's a tougher one to be in that position. Then the third way is that you trust the fact that there are realized beings and they've said it and therefore you know it to be true. It's not inference anymore. It's not an intellectual process. You just accept what they have said. That's faith. See, we have gotten so super sophisticated in our evaluative mechanisms that you question everything you hear. How do you know you're not being hustled? I mean, what was Jesus up to? What was the thing about? What do they want? What's the game? What's the game, man? What's he into? What's he into? And that you especially feel if you are one of the keepers of the tables in the temple. If you are committed to an existing system with great attachment. With great attachment. Some way or other, though, most of you in this room, most of you, not all of you, but most of you have sensed the possibility. Sensed the possibility. It happened to me the first time I took psilocybin, a synthetic chemical. It's a synthetic of the tiananoctyl, the Mexican mushroom which is commonly known in the mountains as the flesh of the gods, tiananoctyl. And you ingest 9 mushrooms, 5 male and 4 female mushrooms. And you transcend your ego. And you see how it all is. And you touch, you go through the door, you go through the doorway into the magic theater. You may even get beyond the magic theater. You might get to the clear white light. All the way to nirvikalpa samadhi. You go just as far as you can give up to go. Some people use this method and they say, wow, dig the colors and lights. Some say, boy, I feel so close to other people interpersonally. Some say, wow, you and I are one. Some say, why, there isn't even a you and I. It's just energy. Some say, it's all and everything and nothing. It's the void. And they're beyond words. You go just as far as you're ready to go. Those are all stages on the path. They are also known as the physical, astral, and causal planes. Same thing, different words. How high did you get in the last trip? How high? Well, I went into Hiranya Loka, an upper level of the astral plane. Right? And you can get pretty good at chronicling the whole thing when you understand how the chronicle works, how the pattern is designed, how the system is designed. You went through the door, but you get thrown out. At least I got thrown out. Maybe you didn't get thrown out. If you didn't get thrown out, you are a realized being. And if you're a realized being, you're not here. So everybody here has at least been thrown out or never got in. Right? Here we are, outcasts. We've all been rejected. We all came to the wedding feast, and we weren't wearing the wedding garment, and we got bound hand and foot and cast into outer darkness, and here we are. Right? This is a meeting of outer darkness. And there was much crying and gnashing of teeth. That's what he said. It's all on the level. It's all straight. I mean, he's telling you just how it is. That's what's so far out about it. Absolutely so far out.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. We appreciate all the support for the foundation and for Ram Dass's work, and we hope that you will continue that support. You can go to ramdas.org and click on the Donate Now button and follow the prompts. Thank you. This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org.
Welcome to the Ram Dass Here and Now podcast. I'm your host, Raghu Marcus. Well, we've been doing these podcasts for a little bit now. Seems like maybe we're going on a couple of months. And the idea that we had was to deliver to you a little bit of an introduction from me, which is, kind of how I met Ram Dass and then went off to India and met Maharaji and that journey. And also the lectures that we are presenting of Ram Dass are from the late 60s. They basically are his transformation story, and they are his guidelines for living a spiritual life, as simple as that. And they probably, most of them, form the basis for the book Remember, Be Here Now, which most of us hopefully remember. If not, pick that book up. It's an amazing book. So I started noticing in these lectures something pretty interesting. I mean, they were done. Ram Dass went to India in 1967. He spent about 6 months there after he met Maharaji, and came back to America. And as everyone knows, he started going around lecturing, after, of course, Maharaji telling him not to tell a word about him. Now, I just want to point one little example out of something. So he went back to India after those maybe a few intervening years. I mean, he was in America 68, 9, and part of 70. And then he went back to India, and that's when a bunch of us went over as well. So in this lecture, and actually it's part of the lecture that follows this little introduction, Ram Dass is talking a lot about how he manipulated his, what he calls, puny ego to move in and out of finding consciousness, but at the same time, it was a lot of manipulation was going on in his mind. And he was getting high, so he'd be out of time and space, but he'd always crash, which was one of the big motivations he had to get to India originally. So he talked about all of this, and he talked about once you've seen through the illusion, then, well, there's really no going back on one level, and this is what he's talking about in the lecture. But at the same time, you recognize you have this personality and you're going to live with it for the rest of your life. But at the same time, you're able to get behind it into a witness and a non-judgmental basis. So your life becomes something other once you see through this illusion, and that's what he's talking about. So I was just looking through notes that I had from when I was there way back when, and Maharaji said to us one day regarding this very question that Ram Dass brought up before Maharaji said it years later. He said, "You must honor your personality to gain freedom from the tyranny of thought forms." I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I didn't remember it, but something so valuable. And what's even more amazing is Ram Dass had this thing coming through him from Maharaji even before Maharaji himself said it to us. Well, maybe I'm getting too dramatic, but regarding manipulating that puny ego, I'll tell a little story. I was sitting, at one point, one of us in the group made a whole bunch of these cute stamps of pictures of Maharaji. Gave them out to everybody. Maharaji used to ask for them, and we go, "Here." And he'd take the stamps, and of course you'd expect him to give equal amounts to everybody who was there, and he'd give the whole damn thing to one schlub that you can't, oh my God, he gave it to this person. One person. Anyhow, so, of course, I'm sitting in front of him, not right in front of him, but about 20, 30 feet away. He was talking to somebody, and he asked for some stamps, and I had some stamps right in front of him. I ripped them in half, went up to him, and gave him half. Well, he looked at me like I was handing him poop. I mean, it was like, are you out of your mind? I mean, he saw me do it. It wasn't like prescient or anything. He wasn't going into the universal whatever. It was just right in front of his eyes. So he did, "Nai, ciao," which means leave immediately, which I did. And then I looked for a place to hang myself because I was so depressed for days. I mean, that was just a transparent, ridiculous, puny ego thing of holding on to something. So a couple of days later, I was back in Kenchi, and he said, "Anybody got any stamps?" And sure enough, I had those same stamps. You bet I gave all of them to him. He gave them all to somebody else, and he turned back to me, and he had his finger pointed as he does. You can see it in some pictures with that look on his face. "Watch out, buddy." Anyhow, that was just, I mean, we were just in our 20s at the time, you know. We didn't know nothing from nothing. So that was a little bit slice of life of being there with Neem Karoli Baba.
So what happened to me was I went through the doorway and I thought, oh, wow, it isn't like I thought it was at all. I mean, if I'm going to spend my whole life manipulating this puny ego through a set of power games and a set of sensual gratifications, and what's the payoff? The end is it's going to all end anyway, because it's all in time. And suddenly I dig that who I am at that moment when I'm, quote, stoned, quote, high, I am out of time. I am out of space. But boy, does it feel valid. Does it feel real. It feels like the first real thing that's ever happened to me. Everything else had a certain, like, hustle quality to it. And except my suffering. I mean, I was really into my suffering. I mean, you really get into your suffering. Self-pity, that's real. You know, everything else may go, but boy, you got to suffer. And we're just coming out of the dark night of the Protestant ethic. You know, suffer, baby. That's the only way you'll be good. Suffer some more. Come on, really suffer. Oh, it feels so good. It hurts so bad. We've all been the trip. We've all been the trip. Suffering is great. It's like straightening by fire. It's purifying. It's very good. But the funny thing about one another paradox, this trip requires total suffering, but it's got to be suffering that's no suffering. I mean, you just got to go the whole suffering trip, but you can't be the guy that's suffering. Do you think, by the way, that when Christ is standing there and they're nailing nails in, he said, "Oh man, does that hurt?" He's probably looking at the guy that's nailing it in with absolute compassion. He digs why the cat's doing it, what he's stuck in, how much dust covers his eyes, why he's got to be doing it. That's the way it is. He said the night before, he says, "Well, tomorrow is the big trip. I got to go on it. You know, I'm going to go do this thing." Yeah, right, there are the nails. Wow, look at that. I go to the dentist, and the dentist says, "I'm going to have to drill near a nerve. I'll give you Novocaine." "No, don't give me Novocaine." "What do you mean you want Novocaine? It'll be terrible." "It's pain. It's interesting." "Well, all right." Boy, it's pain. It's really interesting. It really is interesting. But who am I? Am I he who is being pained? No, that's the thing. Once you know that, then pleasure and pain, and fame and shame, and loss and gain are all the same. They're all just happening to you. They're just like, you know, you're standing on a bridge watching it go by. Wow. Wow, look at that. Boy, ooh. Once you have seen through the illusion, and that, as I told you, wasn't your choice. It just was your karma, that at this particular lifetime, and I know you all went through changes when I say this particular lifetime. You mean there were other lifetimes? You mean you believe in reincarnation? Well, I'll take you through that very gradually in about 5 minutes. We're going to go the whole trip tonight. Last night, let's blow it all. For some reason or other, this trip, you woke up. I mean, you went through lots of trips before this, and you can see all the trips you went through out on the street. You're meeting them all the time. Guy carrying the burden of his personality through life. I've spent 32 years in analysis, and I'm now coping. Boy, he's not going to make it this round. But the minute the moment has come where the veil just gets thin enough so that you see through for a second, so that when you go to church on Sunday and they sing a hymn, humbly I adore thee, verity unseen, who thy glory hidest neath these shadows mean. Lo, to thee surrendered, my whole heart is bowed, tranced as it beholds thee shrined within the cloud. That's a hymn from the Episcopalian hymnal, Protestant hymnal. Okay? The words were St. Thomas Aquinas. Now, you could very easily be somebody who's gone to the Episcopal Church of a Sunday morning because somebody took you or because you were looking, and you may have sung, "Humbly I adore thee, verity unseen." Just think of all the thousands of people who sing that and they don't know what it's talking about. They're just doing the words as if it's like praying to idols. They're doing the words as if the words are going to do it to them. But the seed hasn't been planted. The veil hasn't lifted. They're on an ego trip. Look how good I am going to church. It's called the golden chain in India. The golden chain. They're good people. See, they're not bad people. Bad people are like doing heavy things. They're laying heavy things on each other. Well, it's good people laying heavy things on each other too, but the word heavy is too complicated to use. In fact, it's going through a metamorphosis. It's got a whole new meaning now. But good people are in a tricky position because they're doing what the outward manifestation of the thing is, but the inner thing isn't happening. It's very poignant, very poignant. But it's all right because they're going in the right direction. Another round or two, and they'll make it. They'll hear the words that they're singing. I go to church in the little town I live in New Hampshire. And all the people sing these hymns, and nothing's happening. They walk in all uptight, and they walk out all uptight. Maybe they're a little calmer. I see them, and lights flash, and I get so stoned I want to run down the aisle and shout, "Whoa! Listen to those words, and it's really here." You're singing about it all, just the way it's really like the book says. It's not like you think it is at all. Psychotic. Watch it. Watch it. Watch it. Careful. The psychosis business is an interesting business. You see, if you go through the doorway too fast and you're not ready for it, and you're getting bound hand and foot and thrown out in outer darkness, you may land anywhere. And lots of people land in mental hospitals. And the reason they do that is because they went in through the door with their ego. See, they said like, "Wow, I've been invited to the wedding feast. I mean, dig me, Sam Jones in heaven. Sam Jones standing at the right side of the Lord. There's the Lord, and there's Gabriel, and there's Sam Jones. They don't understand that you got to die to be born. That only when you have been born again do you enter the kingdom of heaven. So they've gone in on the first round. And what happens is they go on a huge ego trip. And it's called the messianic complex. It's called paranoia. Delusions of grandeur. I have a brother who is in a mental hospital. He thinks he is Christ. Well, that's groovy. I am Christ also. But he doesn't think I'm Christ. He just thinks he's Christ. Because it happened to him, and he took his ego with him. So he says, like, I'm special. And when I say to him, "Sure, man, you're Christ, I'm Christ too," he says, "You don't understand." And so when he's out, he steals cars and things like that because he needs them. Because he's Christ, it's all right. So they lock him up. He says, "I don't know." He said, "Me, I'm a responsible member of society. I go to church. Me, they put in a mental hospital. You've got a beard, you wear a dress, you're out free." sure, because as far as I'm concerned, we're all God. That's the difference. That's the difference. And if you really think another guy's God, he doesn't lock you up. It's funny about that. But you got to be really pure. You got to really think it. You can't just make believe you think it. Anything less than total purity, back out into outer darkness. Send him around again. Send him around again. That's what you learn after a couple of hundred psychedelic trips. Well, I might as well get straight because I'm getting to feel like a yo-yo. I keep going up and coming down, up and down. As long as there's an up and down, as long as there's a high and a low in your head, outer darkness. As long as you're in the world of yin and yang, outer darkness. It takes a lot of purification. Purification of what? Purification of thought, purification of body, freedom from attachment. Freedom from attachment. And after a long time of going up and down, without understanding why I was going up and down or how to stop it, how to stop the going down, slowly, slowly it dawned on me. Now, why did I keep trying? The answer is very simple, and almost all of you know the answer already. The answer is once the seed is in you, you don't have any choice. Again, it's karma. I mean, I keep raising that nasty word, and I'll define it in a moment, but it's built into you. Once you have seen what it all is like, you just can't go back to playing bridge. It just doesn't make it. It's like, imagine you're prepubescent, you're just at puberty, and you have been playing ollie ollie in free, hide and seek, or you've been playing baseball, and you collect baseball cards, and you're really into collecting baseball cards, and Coca-Cola caps that have baseball players, and you're really into it. I mean, it's really important. Really important. And then some strange thing happens, uncontrolled by you, and you find yourself turned on by the chick next door. And through some strange set of circumstances, you find yourself kissing her, and all kinds of lights flash. Well, from that moment on, the baseball cards are just different. They're just different. You can go back and say, well, that's all interesting, but the baseball cards are really what's important. That's called defense. The thing happened, the seed got planted. No turning back. No turning back. Once you sense the possibility, once you just feel that other thing inside of you, you start in this it's completely unconscious mechanism of searching, listening for the messages. Do you know? Do you know? Do you have the key? Where's the next message? Where's the next message? And the interesting thing is, there is always the next message, and it's always available to you. Now, that's a hard one. Some of you, I mean, this is like, I'm going through this thing of like people saying, what's going to happen when you go away? Who's Who's going where, first of all? Second of all, it has nothing to do with me. The process is going on in each individual. Whenever you're ready, you hear the next message. The next message is where you are when you're ready to hear the next message. If you come here this evening and you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you're not ready to hear this message. And you can be sitting here and there's no message. Somebody else comes here and they say, wow, that's the message I was waiting for. Both of you are in this room at this very moment. The handwriting is always on the wall saying, magic theater for madmen only, price of admission your mind. Hermann Hesse's metaphor from Steppenwolf. Always there. Question is, can you see it? The funny thing about all of the secrets of the East, or of the secrets of mysticism, is they're not secrets. Nobody's saying, don't tell him. They're telling you, they're yelling at it. He's saying, except ye be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. That's a secret. Think of how many times you heard that, and you say, well, yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, great. That's a minister talking. He's doing his thing. He's got to earn a living, too. He's a good guy. Because you can't, the secret is a secret to you because of where your head is at. Your receiving mechanism isn't tuned for that particular frequency. Okay, now, no nonsense. How do I really think it is? I've been on a trip now. My trip has taken me through psychology, more or less responsibly. Then it took me from my academic career, psychology, into psychedelics and exploring the within chemically, which led me to end my psychology career rather dramatically by being fired from Harvard. Then I pursued the psychedelics for a long time, and then I got that feeling of being a yo-yo. And then I finally went to the East seeing if anybody knew anything else, since I didn't know enough to figure out how to do this trip. I couldn't stay inside the door. I didn't know what to do next. I kept reading the books, but I didn't understand them. They were yelling the secrets, but I couldn't hear them because I was looking at them from the wrong place. That was my problem. And I couldn't get my head in the right place to see what they were about. Because I still wanted to know I knew, see? I was still a Western rational man. We'll figure this thing out. Psychic phenomena are very interesting. We certainly must do further research. So I went and I looked and I looked and I looked, and as long as I looked like a rational man looking, I didn't find anything. I just found my own shadow all the time. So all you can ever find is yourself. You only read yourself, you only talk to yourself, you only ever know yourself. That's all there is. That's all there is, strangely enough. And then I gave up. I saw that my whole game didn't work. Didn't work. It gave me all the rewards that seemed to be offered, but it didn't work. It didn't, there was that place in me that knew it wasn't working. I knew there was something else, and I couldn't get to it. Couldn't get to it. At that point, I gave up, and then I was ready for the next message, and then the next message was standing right there. It was sitting right in a hippie restaurant, the Blue Tibetan restaurant, in Kathmandu, Nepal. And the message took me by the hand and took me the whole trip and took me to my next message giver, who was a being who had finished the trip. He didn't come down anymore. He was inside the gates. There he was. He was a realized being. And he did the thing. He blew my mind. He finished me with my rational trip. That is a brief chronology of the series of dramas that unfolded in this illusion that one calls sadhana, or spiritual path. Now, after having studied psychology and guided psychedelic trips and read Eastern books and met realized beings and listened to innumerable stories from people about other realized beings and their own trips and inner heads and been a psychotherapist for 10 years and all, this is the way it looks to me. I'm not asking anybody to buy anything. There's no sale going on here. No sale. Because there's nobody sending a message. You and I are here, we're observing this process. That's all that's going on. If I'm trying to convince you, I might just as well pack up my whatever holy men have and wend my way down 3rd Avenue. Because if I'm trying, I can be assured of failure. There's no trying. Because there's no you and there's no me. Here we are. We're just exploring how it is. I'm our mouth. I'm our mouth. I once took LSD with Alan Watts and his wife, and he started to talk, and he talked for 8 hours. And at first I got uptight. I mean, like, I know something. Why doesn't he ask me, like... He's just going to talk all night? And then it dawned on me that he was just our mouth. He was our mouth. And it was beautiful, because every time our thoughts didn't fit with what he was saying, what he was saying would change. He was extremely sensitive, and he was the most erudite mouth I've ever spoken through. How is it? How is it then? Statement number 1. We, rational man, is not the highest being on the evolutionary scale at this moment. There are beings that are realized beings that do not live in bodies, whose awareness functions at a higher rate of vibration than ours does. They do not process data through gross senses, through eyes, ears, nose, mouth, skin, or do they know through their intellect. Statement number 1. Statement number 2. We are all eligible to enter the next evolutionary stage to the extent that we are able to extricate ourselves from the time-space locus in which we find ourselves. By which I mean changing one's vibrational rate, if you will. Available to everybody. It has nothing to do with you got to wait till you die. It's available right here now, this minute, here and now. In fact, if you could turn off your senses and turn off your intellect right now, you'd be here. You'd really be here. It's as simple as that. You don't have to plan, shall I go become enlightened or become a physicist? It doesn't work that way. You don't have to do that trick. If you think of mass as solid, that's because you are trusting your senses. And you look at something and it looks solid most of the time if you're at the usual way of seeing things. Everybody agrees it's solid. When it hits you, it hurts. It must be real. When you get a little more sophisticated in rational ways, if you get a little further into physics, you understand about the relation of mass and energy, and you understand that what appears as mass only appears that way because of the nature of the receiving apparatus of your senses. And that in fact, all solids are in fact just energy. They're patterns of energy. That you could call them slow down light. Slow down light. And when it is slowed down and forms into certain patterns, it gets gross enough so you can see it through your eyes. It's just like going from infrared or ultraviolet through the spectrum of the visual field. When the vibration rate changes, you can see it. Or if it gets to a point where you can't see it or can't hear it. It gets too high, only dogs can hear it. You can't hear it. As you go up in that rate of that frequency, that vibrational frequency, you get to light. You get to thought. See, the reason we can't measure thought yet, really, is because we just don't have apparatuses for measuring at those vibrational rates yet. I mean, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of cases of people transmitting thought from one being to another. I once visited J.B. Rhine down at Duke, North Carolina, and J.B. was sitting there with this peculiar position on his desk, piled like yay high, and in closets are letters from thousands of people describing the experience of thought transmission. But when he tries to do it in the laboratory, he can only do a little better than chance. It's like we know it exists, but we can't know we know it. It's one of those problems. We can't know we know it. Keep going faster and faster in the vibratory rate and in the smallness of the unit that's vibrating until you get to the tiniest quanta of energy. Tiniest quanta of energy. It is so tiny that it's only in combination that it makes up atoms, or makes up the components of atoms even. Physicists now work with these things theoretically. That energy is so fine that the entire universe is composed of it, and it's solid. You, Mars, the air, vacuum, the flowers, the candle flame, my thought, it's all made up of the same stuff. It's just in pattern. It's just in pattern. Now, if you are able, this is a fact I am telling you now, from where I'm sitting. If you are able to pursue the discipline of extricating your awareness, your consciousness from your own senses and from your own thought, you become part of that finest energy. What are the qualities of that energy? It is totally interchangeable in everything in the universe. Totally interchangeable. So that if a part of it was a part of this flower at this moment, it might be a part of Mars the next moment, or a part of the vacuum the next moment. It's all the same stuff. At that point, when you look at, if you could look at the world, if you could clear away all that stuff out of your eyes and see the universe at that level of energy, if you could turn your receiver so you could get it at that level, all you would see was a homogeneous white light. You'd see the clear white light. You would see, you'd say, that is all and everything. And yet it has no form to it, because it is where energy lies behind form. Where energy lies behind form. When you are able to extricate yourself from the time and space illusion, and it is an illusion as it turns out. The question is, who am I? Who am I? Am I this body? Am I these senses? Am I this thought process? I cogito ergo sum. It's a lie. It's a lie. Sum ergo cogito is perhaps reasonable. That's a lie too, but so are all words.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. We appreciate all the support for the foundation and for Ram Dass's work, and we hope that you will continue that support. You can go to ramdas.org and click on the Donate Now button and follow the prompts. Thank you. This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. Welcome to the Ram Dass Be Here Now podcast. And I'm your host, Raghu Marcus. Well, we've been talking a little bit more about what I call a slice of life, just being with Maharaji day to day. At that point, I was completely relaxed and felt at home in India. Been there, I guess, going on a year at that point. And in fact, the thought of going home was like, oh, I don't think I can do that. Not that there was one jit of an idea of leaving. That was a whole other drama that took place later. But at this moment, we were just day to day living up at this wonderful hotel in Nainital, which is this British hill town that they kind of built a lot of hotels, or had them built, to get away from the heat in the summer. It's a fantastic place, lovely place. And so we were all staying there, I guess around 30 people or so, and obviously sharing day to day our experience going to see Maharaji. And Ram Dass, of course, was with us, and he was, kind of acting as the teacher. He wasn't he was. Although there were some people who did not consider that part of their journey, and that once we all met Maharaji, we all had direct experiences with him. But Ram Dass was older, and we all had all kinds of issues all the time, so he certainly acted in that stead. But then, at one point, he got a little bit, had enough of these Westerners and their glomming onto him, and a lot of manipulative egos were happening then. So he, one day, once upon a time, Ram Dass took about, takes about, from Nainital, where the ashram is, about half a day. And he walked there while the rest of us took wonderful taxis and buses. And as a matter of fact, Ram Dass had, for a while, a Volkswagen bus that we used to use. until Maharaji told him, no, you don't know, Guru doesn't drive. Guru is humble and takes walks or takes the bus. So Krishnadas ended up driving the Volkswagen bus and Ramdas driving him out of his mind. Anyhow, so he walked to Kenchi and he gets there and we're being served food across the courtyard from Maharaji, who's sitting on the bench, tucket. And he gets there and he's not a happy camper. And one of the satsang goes over and gives him a plate of food, which he promptly throws back in his face, which in India, food being totally like sacred, you can't even not finish your meal or else it's like you might as well go slap the host. So this was a terrible, terrible event. And he was really upset. Maharaji called us over and Ramdas was just sitting there glumly with this plate of food all over the place and said, what happened? And we told him, well, Ramdas is not happy with us. He thinks we're being very adharmic or, in a simpler way, that means self-involved, where our self-interest was so high, he just couldn't handle it anymore, which, of course, to some degree it was. And Maharaji just looked at us and said, hey, listen, he didn't say it like that, but he said, no one would have gotten here to me except for Ramdas. You don't know who he is. And he went on like that. Then he called Ramdas up. And he said, you're angry? And Ramdas said, yes. Why? I can't take the self-interest of the Westerners. He said, a-dharma of the Westerners. And Maharaji said, you have to give up this anger. But I'm going to help you. And he got a glass of warm milk. And he said, I'll give you the milk, but you have to drink it. Which is a key teaching, which is having the intention to want to let go, right? So, and of course, Maharaji, it's his job to provide it. But there is some relationship there from a guru and a devotee. So that happened, and boy, this was, I'd say, well, it's a story that's been told by Ramdas and others many, many times, because the real teaching in there of letting go, of volition to let go, is so powerful, And again, this is another slice of life, slice of a day of hanging out with him. So, and here is what Ramdas was talking about.
In Sanskrit, what happens when you pursue yoga, which means union, yoga or union, you go behind the form. You go into the place where it is all one. All one. That place in Sanskrit is called Sat Chit Ananda. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat Chit Ananda is the kingdom of heaven. Ram Tirth, the poet, who was a realized being, describes Sat Chit Ananda from inside. He lives on the other side of the doorway. See, on the other side of the doorway, you see there's no doorway. There's only a doorway from this side. Another paradigm. He says, I am without form, without limit. I am beyond space, beyond time. I am in everything, Everything is in me. I am the bliss of the universe. Everywhere am I. I am Sat, absolute existence, Chit, absolute knowledge, Ananda, absolute bliss, Tattvam Asi, I am that. Tattvam Asi, I am that. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Think of the fine energy now. What is the fine energy, the quality of the fine energy? It permeates everything. Remember I said about Padmasambhava, he is pure light. He is pure consciousness. He is pure love. He is pure wisdom. He is pure energy. Do you understand that identity? I am talking about a specific identity. A very cold, systematic identity. When you go up the pyramid, and this is what Plato suspected when he got into his realm of pure ideas. When you go up the pyramid, follow beauty all the way back. Follow love all the way back, behind into personal love. Follow energy back as the physicists are doing. You end up at the top of the place where it all turns out to be the same. Do you understand that that fine energy we've just been talking about is the same exact thing as what we call consciousness? The universe is conscious. It is consciousness. It is not self-conscious. It does not know it knows. It just is. It is. It is consciousness. Sat Chit Ananda. My guru, who is a guy that lives on the other side of the doorway, he just is. He doesn't sit around knowing he knows. The candle flame doesn't sit around saying, I am being a candle flame. It's just being a candle flame. If there is a requirement, a motive, a desire brings the guru from being in the place where he is just like the candle flame, just part of consciousness, the vast, pure energy that is consciousness. It brings him back down into form. Brings him down into form. Brings him down into knowing he knows. I mean, I meet the guru, and I'm there by chance, and I go up, and in a few minutes he tells me all about things that have happened to me in my past. And he tells me things that he can't know by any means I know he knows, by any of the usual techniques of knowing one knows. So when he does that to me, he completely takes me the next step. He creates the faith. He blows my mind. Lest ye see miracles ye will not believe, Christ said with great compassion. I was one of those people. It's the kind of Western cynicism that is the basis of science also. I'll entertain the hypothesis. That's cynicism. The null hypothesis. The null hypothesis. There is no relationship until I can demonstrate with a certain degree of probability that there is a relationship. And he did that thing, and he cut through what had to be cut through. Now, did he sit there and say, like, well, here's this cat, I think I will remember, I will tell him that. No, that's thinking, that's knowing you know. He isn't there at all. He was just being. He was being a leaf on a tree, like, and I came along, and there was in me a desire to get ahead, to cut through my cynicism. And it was my desire which brought that thing out of him. It was my desire which brought that thing out of him. Now this is very far out, and if you can grasp it, it's really very, very important. Very important. Because to be that pure energy is just a state of total being. And when I say you aren't who you think you are, it's because you define yourself in terms of doing versus being. Knowing you know your thoughts, your body and what it does. You say, I'm a lawyer, or I'm an architect, or I'm a hippie, or whatever you are. You define yourself in terms of social roles, in terms of actions. How do I know myself? As if I'm a behavior studying myself from outside. The fact of the matter is, when you go in and in and in and in and in and behind that role and that role and that role and that one too, you get to a place where you just are. Just pure isness. Pure isness. Pure awareness. Pure consciousness. Pure energy. If you really reside in that, then you live in Sat Chit Ananda. That means you no longer live in this time-space locus called the body. That's the beginning of what is at the lower levels is called astral travel. See, astral travel still means going from point A to point B. So it must mean there's some finite being that goes from A to B. The Guru is beyond astral travel. He is point A and point B. That's when I said, if we knew who we really are, there'd only be one of us here. There is only one consciousness in the whole universe. And when you cut through the drama, you reside in that place. In this place. In here. In here. In here. Now, do you understand what chit means? Absolute knowledge. Absolute knowledge. I mean, can you imagine what you've been doing? You've been, when I said to you, there's nothing I can say you don't already know, you didn't believe me. You didn't really believe me. You thought I was putting you on. I mean, you are actually probably, and I do the same thing, you go into bookstores and you buy a book like there's something in the book. You aren't. You realize you're already the book, if you but knew. I mean, my teacher, he's a very pure being. He's not as high as the Guru, but he's got a number of siddhis or powers. He'll take a book like this, he'll pick it up and yeah, there are some things in it that'll be helpful to you. You got to be around these people for quite a while before you understand they're not putting you on. In their world, there are no hypes. There's nothing but total truth, total purity, total purity. They live in the spirit. They live in this place. So what we are in is a journey called the evolution of consciousness. It is God coming to know himself, which finally becomes himself. Because you understand, let me show you the levels, the way it works. You're at the physical plane, where you're receiving vibrations at a certain rate, so all you see when you look around you in this room are other gross physical beings. You're not seeing any of the astral beings in this room at this moment, most of you. Some of you are. Some of you see the astral bodies in each other by seeing auras. Others of you don't see those auras. Some of you, when you see the aura, you think it's a trick that the light's playing on you, because you don't trust the processes that happen in you. Many of you are higher than you let yourself be most of the time. That's the fact of the matter. Most people are constantly having experiences where they break through the veil and they reject it almost all the time because it doesn't fit in with the existing model. It's always happening. The physical plane is the plane at which you're at this vibrational rate and you've got a body and what keeps you there, now you've got to understand what I'm going to say about desire is what keeps you there is your own desire. The only reason, like Ramakrishna Paramahans, the beautiful, beautiful saint in India, Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna was in such a high state, he had a terrible time staying in his body. It was a terrible problem. He kept drifting off. And he had to keep creating desires in order to stay in his body, in order to hang out for his because his trip was to help people do their thing, I guess. I mean, I'm not in cosmic government, so I don't recall giving him his assignment if I did. So he'd say, "I'm thirsty, get me a glass of water." And they get him a glass of water. He says, "Oh, I couldn't touch a drop." He said, "I thought you wanted a glass of water." "I just wanted to want something to bring me back here. I had to be..." For those of you that don't understand, over there is a raised platform, and around it there is a pool that is filled with charcoal, but there's no water in it at the moment. And all that you hear, which sounds like horses in stables, is the charcoal, and somebody may have just fallen off the... It is our desire that keeps us in this physical plane. I'll explain more about that in a second. Now, there's a physical plane, and when you have finished with the desires that keep you with the physical plane, when you have finished with that level of desire, then you move into the next plane, which is called the astral plane. And the astral plane is a plane where beings dwell just like you and me, except their desires are more subtle, and the desires do not require that they have physical manifestations. And all the beings you've ever read about in all the nursery books and all of the fairy tales and the Bible and all these things about demons and devils and goblins and fairies and nymphs and Padmasambhava and all these, they're all hanging out at the astral plane. And they're all real. Because that plane is just as real as this is. It's just another cut, another vibrational cut. It's just another vibrational cut. And if you can go from what happens to most people, like we've all witnessed recently the drama of James Pike and his son Jim. And Jim shot himself and then, or died somehow, I guess he shot himself, and then he was in contact with his father across the plains through a medium. A medium is a being who can tune in on the astral plane. Now what happens is this astral plane, this next level out, has a number of layers to it. You've got to understand that all the time we in the West were busy charting the moon and the trip to the moon and how to work in the frontiers of the West and how to dig into the ocean. There have been a lot of guys who have been busy charting the inner world and these other domains, and there are beautiful maps and charts if you can read them, if you have enough faith to be able to open yourself to be able to see what they're about. So there are many, many, many levels. Some, You can probably, in most of the Sanskrit literature, there's 6 or 7 levels above this one. The first one out is what is in the Christian Bible called heaven and hell. And it's that kind of a level. It's got all those things in it. See, the Lord, the Christian Lord, is a manifestation. He's got his throne, and he's got his angels, and all that scene around him. That's all astral. That's all astral. And as Bhagavad Gita says, those that pray to the gods, go to the gods. If you desire to go to heaven, that's where you go, to heaven, which is the first plane of the astral plane. It's a very groovy place to go. There's 6 more above it, so don't get too hung up there, but it's a nice place. Certainly good. Good people go there. Persian Rumi says, I died as mineral and became a plant. I died as plant and rose to animal. I died as animal and I was man. Why should I fear? When was I ever less by dying? Yet once more I shall die as man to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on. All except God doth perish. When I have sacrificed my angel soul, I shall become what no mind e'er conceived. Oh, let me not exist, for non-existence proclaims in organ tones, to him we shall return. God and that fine energy and Padmasambhava and your Atma, it's all the same stuff. All the same thing. It's behind it all. It's behind the physical plane, behind the astral plane, and we got one more plane to go. We got the causal plane. The causal plane is what Plato was talking about. It's a plane of pure ideas. And the planes are like this. Each plane subsumes the next planes. When you finish with the grossest desires that keep you here on the physical plane, then you're left with a lot of subtle desires. Like, you want to be God of the wind? Baby, you're going to be God of the wind. I mean, you don't realize how it's all going to come out. Wait till you see. It's really going to blow your mind. You're going to be everything you ever wanted to be. That's the funny part about the astral trip. You do it all yet. Everybody does it all. It's in store for everyone. Don't worry about it. You don't have to be chosen. You can be anything you want. At the astral plane, you can create your universes. You're given that privilege. You're also given the wisdom to know how to not screw it up. Because your ego's gotten very subtle, very subtle. There's still desire. As long as there's desire, there's still ego. As long as there's desire, there's still an astral plane. Your desire creates your universe. That's the rule of thumb. Desire creates the universe, be it physical, astral, or causal. So you get finished with the gross things that keep you on the astral plane. I mean, you really want to have that full color experience. You want to travel like light. You want to bathe in ambrosial bliss. You want to hang on to bliss because it feels so good. Sure, man, you're going to have plenty of chance. Then you got to give that one up too. Got to give that one up too. I have a guru brother who is in the Himalayas. He is in a cave in the Himalayas. He is a 23-year-old Westerner from Laguna Beach. Okay. Except he happens to be a very high being. I'll tell you why, who's what in a second. He is spending most of his time in this cave on the astral plane. He's doing his astral work at the moment. Because the rules of this game are, when you start the trip, as you get purer, as your mind gets calmer through meditation, as you learn to work with the energies, you can easily get out of the time-space locus and the gross physical plane. Then you go into the next plane. But you got a lot of work to do there because it's very seductive, and you got to go a lot of trips there, just like you're going trips here. And if you do enough, you can do the whole thing through the physical, causal, astral, and causal, all in one lifetime. Once you're on the path, if you just don't get caught in the cul-de-sacs. And this is what he has to say about this. He's in this cave in the Himalayas. This is his letter to me. Crystal clear illumination. Here we are, sitting in the flowers, rock, raindrop, birds, fire, spring of light. Last night we tuned the sitar to the morning star, and the goddess herself came in dazzling brilliance as mind dances Sahajananda, great Ananda, great bliss. Vastness, effortlessness, emptiness, wrapped up in two hands hold hot wooden bowl of chai, tea, with wisps of mist and steaming jade. Baba Ram Das Ji, that's me, is nowhere to be found, but a hollow bamboo is growing outside the window. Who could have imagined that right from the first, mind is absolutely pure? Who could have believed that right from the first, not a thing is? Here in the North Country, winds blow heavy from Himalayas as I collect sticks and wood for duni, for the fire. As abiding is really no abiding, I'm abiding in this kuti, this cave. A lot of ancient Chinese days and nights with gong-blowing mind and flying sky dragons and Vajra Yogini dances, lightning bolt goddesses dancing in the womb of time. Complete abandonment. The nectar is amakala, dripping everywhere at every moment from union, wisdom, love, dance, of sun and moon, which conceives bodhicitta, conceives pure intellect. In other words, intellect's one level down. Naked, freezing to death in the middle of a roaring fire, lay it down, drop it, let go, sing it out, throw it out. Going all the way is holy, but alas, some linger on the path to see and smell the pretty golden sunflower, or hold hands with eternity, or practice ecstasy bliss, or circulate the light, or reach neither perception nor non-perception, but lingering anywhere you might, get stuck for kalpas, for ages. But the Sahaja Sthiti Samadhi, the final Samadhi, is really no Samadhi. Therefore, it's really the end. Since there is no end, you can't put the end anywhere. Blue sky and Buddha sits throwing blanket over shoulder, sending apples in all directions at once. Ram Das Baba Kaisa Hai Tikai Bumt Acha Adni Jiao Jiao Jiao. And lingering is gone, 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 well gone, long gone, gone beyond the beyond. Maharaji, our guru, is nothing special, and yet his body fills the universe. You can't go forwards or backwards or stand still. Move, move, move. can feel that letter. He's moving in and out of the levels, just as he's writing it. Just as he's writing it. He's describing these different levels. Now, when you go from physical to astral to causal, you are still with the subtlest desires, the desires for pure idea, pure idea. Thought creates matter. Mind creates matter. The causal plane is the world of ideas that creates the universe. Right at the top of the causal plane is where we call what we call Godhead. The Godhead. It's the first place into the universe of form. It's the first world of form. It's the place where God created the universe. His mind, his thought manifested into the universe. His thought manifested into all the lower levels of the causal plane, all of the astral plane, and all of the physical plane. His thought manifested into all of that. And when you go back and back and back and back, you go to that place where you become one with the Godhead. You are God at that point. You are the idea that lies behind the universe. You literally are it. You're not making believe you're it, you are it. And the funny thing is, you're still not finished. And as far as a Buddhist is concerned, you haven't even begun the trip. You're still hung up in form. Because he says, baby, it's all illusion, no matter how groovy it gets. I mean, this physical plane's obviously illusion, all a dream. Then you go to bed at night, and you go to sleep, and then you dream. Now, you notice about your dreams, they're very real, and yet they don't have any physical form. That's the astral plane. You're dreaming in the astral plane. And then when you get to the point of just pure ideas, sometimes when you're a very high physicist, or poets you've seen, they touch just pure idea. Sometimes art or a vase or something gets so essency, you feel you are touching God by being in connection with that piece of art. Because it's pure idea. It's the idea of vaseness, if you will. That place. It's causal. Causal plane. A mind at the causal plane created the vase. Created the vase. But then you go finally through the final door. And you go from the form into the formless, into the void, into the beyond the beyond. The Tibetan mantra is Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Swaha. O wisdom which has gone beyond, beyond the beyond, to thee homage. When you have crossed the ocean of samskara, the ocean of illusion, the ocean of desire, the ocean of attachment, you can call it whatever you will, it's all the same ocean. When you have crossed through all the form, you enter into the state of formlessness. It is eternally quiet. It's eternally quiet. It never was. Push far enough toward the void, hold fast enough to quietness, and of the 10,000 things, none but can be worked on by you. I have beheld them whither they go back. See all things, howsoever they flourish, return to the roots from which they grew. This return to the root is called quietness. Quietness is called submission to fate. What has submitted to fate becomes part of the always so. To know the always so is to be illumined. Not to know it means to go blindly to disaster, says Lao Tzu in the Book of Tao.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org. We appreciate all the support for the foundation and for Ram Dass's work, and we hope that you will continue that support. You can go to ramdas.org and click on the Donate Now button and follow the prompts. Thank you. This podcast is brought to you by the Love Serve Remember Foundation and ramdas.org.
Welcome to the Ram Dass Here and Now podcast, and I'm your host, Raghu Marcus. Well, in doing these podcasts over the last, I guess it's a couple of months now, they are new for the offering that we do at ramdas.org. I just started to listen myself to the actual lectures that we've been presenting after my introductions. These are lectures that came in the late 60s after Ram Dass had first come back from India. And they are those lectures which prompted many of us to get over to India at that time, in 1970 actually. But I hadn't really listened to these lectures in a long time. And, but of course, doing this, I've been listening. And I'm actually quite amazed at the relevancy that they have. Not that this kind of wisdom, is a taste of the week kind of a thing, but it certainly is still pretty radical for somebody to have come along at that point in time and have some, serious wisdom about how to move along in this world from a soul point of view rather than an ego point of view, and know that there is a way to get happy. I mean, which is a major thing back then for many of us who are pretty depressed individuals. So yeah, just commenting on that, and I hope many of you who are listening are really enjoying hearing these words from Ram Dass. Today I want to tell of an incident. I think the last couple of podcasts, not webcasts, I talked about sort of giving a little bit of a slice of life, I called it. Just being with Maharaji, just moments where you get an idea of what it was like, because there was no teaching really going on. It was very much in the moment, relating back and forth with him and him prompting all sorts of pretty interesting things, basically reflecting that with that pure mind, reflecting the everyone's individual stuff. Sometimes wasn't so pleasant, but this particular incident happened in a place called Vrindavan, which is where Krishna frolicked with the young women who milked the cows, and we were staying there, and Maharaji had told us not to come to the ashram for some days. I guess he was bored with us. But one day, Krishna Das, now many of you know who Krishna Das is. He does chanting around the world, and he was the first Westerner that came with Ram Dass in those days, that Maharaji really gave the Ashirvad to kind of lead the way with chanting, which is a major practice, that many of us use to this day. And of course,
If there's anybody out there that doesn't know who Krishna Das is, actually, to this particular audience, which most of you have heard of Ram Dass, obviously, or you wouldn't be listening to this, I want someone to write me and say, I never heard of Krishna Das until I heard this podcast, okay? info@ramdas.org. Just a little quirky thing here. So I was with Krishna Das. He hurt his knee, and he was in a lot of pain, and he couldn't walk, and he was a little bit nervous being in India with this kind of an injury. So he said, would you help me get over to the ashram, which, was about 10 minutes away by rickshaw. And I just got to ask Maharaji what to do about this. So off we went. Now, some of this stuff, in order to get my memory straight, I did go back to a diary I had kept back then. And so some of this comes straight from there. Now, Krishnadas and I go back and forth a lot. He's told this story many times because there's some elements in it that are pretty amazing. And we do go back and forth from time to time about who remembers what really happened, or did he say that word, or did he, something like that. So, Krishnadas, this is the real thing here. So we got there. And when we got there, Maharaji said, what's wrong? And, we told him, and he saw Krishnadas holding his knee. And then he sent out for some ointment, something he called with the guy with the mustache. I can't remember what the heck the name was, Krishnadas went. And then Maharaji, in one moment, this shows the complete gamut of the love and compassion of this being. That nothing to do with powers or any of that stuff, just caring. And he turned to me and with a very upset look, and he went, "Kya ho gya? What happened?" He said, "Did any of the mothers come to help?" Meaning many of the Western women. And we said, "Yeah, a couple of them." And then he said to me, "Oh, you served him, and you're good." Of course, I got all, whoa, I'm puffed up about that. And then he said to me, completely out of context from Krishnadas having this injury, which they were applying the ointment on when he was talking. And he said, "What did you do in America?" And I said, "Radio manager." "And how much money did you make? Were you on leave? Would you go back?" I mean, he started talking to me about my work in the middle of all this. This, of course, I never remembered. And then he said, will you go back to that work? And I said, "Well, I'll do whatever you want, Maharaji." And then he said, "Well, I'll get you married," which he did sometime later, as crazy as that was. Then, he did the same with Krishnadas. He asked him what he did in America and how much money he made. And Krishnadas was driving a school bus, I think, before he came. And then he asked about his knee again. Had it hurt before? Yes. And in America? And then he touched Krishnadas's knee lightly twice, and then blew into his hand and touched it again. And then Maharaji said, "What will this medicine do?" That, it had been rubbed in Krishnadas's knee. And he said, Krishnadas said, very cleverly, I must say, he said, "It will hide your grace, Maharaji." And true. And then some bhajan went on, some Mira bhajan, actually Krishnadas sang. And it was a very emotional moment, very emotional. And actually Krishnadas was weeping, and Maharaji said, "Why are you crying?" Krishnadas said, "Just love your love." So all wrapped up in that moment was tremendous compassion and caring and love, just human, And from there, suddenly, Maharaji got up and he started walking around the courtyard. And he was hanging on to, I think it was Guru Dat, one of the elder Indian devotees. And he was kind of hanging on to him, and he was leaning on him. And
as he was doing that, Maharaji was kind of limping, and Krishna started thinking, "Oh, geez, he's taking the pain from my knee." And then he came back and sat down, and he said, "You were thinking I had pain in the knee? You want to give me the medicine?" And then he put his leg down, and he rested it on Krishnadas's leg, rubbing his leg. And then, of course, Krishnadas no longer had any pain. That was one moment. Of course, a whole other aspect to who Maharaji is. And then the next thing, this is the part of the story that Krishnadas tells quite a bit. And it is just, an amazing part of the story. But Krishnadas had a diary with him. And just, he used to put all sorts of, aside from whatever Maharaji said, whatever dreams he might have had, he wrote down and so on. He also put down, and we all did this, different quotes and shlokas from holy books of different spiritual traditions. And in this case, he had one page that had the Song of Mahamudra, Buddhist, very well-known Buddhist text, amazing text, by Tilopa. And Maharaji looked at it, and I guess Sharma must have translated some of the lines, and Maharaji went, Bahotacha, Bahotacha. And what I had written down here, which is something I had not remembered, the translation that he gave Maharaji was exactly this: if one sees not when staring into space, if with the mind one then observes the mind, one destroys distinctions and reaches Buddhahood. That was the first stanza that Krishnadas had written into his book. So that was pretty amazing, because Krishnadas was like, "Oh God, I've got some Buddhist stuff here, and we're in the Hindu thing," and we were all in our mind about it. And then obviously Maharaji completely nixed that. And then he turned the page, and on the next page, Krishnadas had put a picture of Maharaji, big picture, covered the whole page. And Maharaji looked at his picture, and he said to us, "Kyung, who's that?" And we were like, "Ha ha ha, of course it's you." And he said, "Nay, Buddha." So that is a major part of what he passed on to us. That is an essence that is something really, really special. From the moment that we went back with Ramdas, who was back there the second time, from that moment, one of the biggest gifts that Maharaji gave us, obviously love, unconditional love being the foremost, but one of the other biggest gifts that we got was this the idea, completeness of only one. There is only one. He kept saying it over and over and over. There is only one. Buddha, Mohammed, Christ, Krishna. There is only one. And he said Christ and Hanuman are one about 1,000,000 times to us. They are the same. So this little incident that happened when we went there, because Krishnadas's knee was hurting, and we came out of there with this complete, utter evisceration of any idea of singularity of one tradition over another. It was so obvious. And this is how he taught without teaching. And this is what prompted Ramdas to give to people when he first came back to India. And here is more of that.
To go, you've got to go the whole trip, all the way back, before you get to the place where you see that behind all of this, there is all of this in its Om, in its unmanifest form, always, eternally, that nothing's really happening at all. Nothing's really happening at all. Nothing ever happened. Nothing's ever going to happen. There's nothing you got to do. There's no doer to do it anyway. It's the grand illusion, and all of the groovy trips in astrology and the astral plane and occult powers, and all the groovy trips of mind, and all the groovy trips of God concepts and ideas and creations and all that. It's all stuff. Beautiful, exquisite. I mean, oh, wow. Because at every level it's the same trip. It's the cell and the microcosm and the macrocosm and the macrocosm that's the macrocosm of that, including that microcosm. They're all the same, repeated over and over again. There are certain laws that you understand when you're in the Godhead. You see how the whole system works. You see about action and reaction. You see a lot of the laws that man in his highest moments has touched. He's touched. Just like when Einstein touches, you can see that he broke through. You understand when a man breaks through. And Einstein was a pure being, and that's how he touched it. He got beyond ego. He got into the world of pure ideas. He got to the Godhead. He saw how it was in that one little place. He went through right down the middle. Right down the middle. And then, when you have gone all the way out, like Buddha, when he sat under the Bodhi tree, and he went beyond all the desire and all the attachment that kept him being God even. I mean, it's groovy to be God. You know, if you've just been a little child or been pushed around or been just, a taxpayer, wow, not only can you play Nixon, I mean, don't settle for being president, be God. And then when you've used up all those desires, then you're ready to go through the door. Now, the game is that Buddha sat, and he sat there for 7 days, and he said, well, shall I just hang out here? Or shall I come back? And there are many beings that don't, they just finished. They're not on assignment. Because they're really finished. See, many of us have gone through every one of those doorways. I've been through every one of those doorways. I have been into the void. Yet here I am, sitting here in form. Thinking in form, seeing in form, most of the time being at the lowest level. Because my desires brought me down. They brought me back all the time. I was not free of attachments, and I had to keep coming back to the level the attachments kept me at. But if you have purified and finished with attachments, that's what renunciation means. You've finished with attachments. It doesn't mean anything about what you do in the world. It has to do with your inner being. If you've gone the whole trip, then you get into the void, and you're in the void, and you are eternally in the still, quiet ocean where the lights of mother and son merge as one. It's all one. It never was and never will be. Then Buddha saw, he had a vision, and the vision said, from the astral plane or causal plane, sent him on assignment, in effect, said, there are many beings whose veil is very thin, and you can come back and teach them. And that's the bodhisattva role. Because you finally understand that though it is all illusion, it never was and never will be, at every level at which you exist, you are part of everybody else. So as long as anybody's hung up, you're still hung up. Because it's all one being, really. That's the bodhisattva problem. Till everybody makes it, nobody makes it. So what happens is you go all the way out, and then you come back. He who clings to the void and neglects compassion. Now, what does the word compassion now mean? Compassion only means a true empathic understanding of how it all is, which you can only understand when you've been in the void. I mean, if somebody comes into me and they bring me their heavy burden of their karmic trip, oh, I'm suffering so, and it's so rough, and I listen to it, and I love them, and I empathize with them, and I feel the sympathy, and at the same moment that I'm doing that, I realize that they don't exist, I don't exist, the problem doesn't exist, none of us ever were, nothing's happening, there's nobody doing anything to anybody. Right? That's compassion. And at the same moment I'm there and saying, yeah, right, I dig how it is. Compassion is being conscious at all levels. That's what compassion is. Understanding how it all is everywhere, all the time. He who clings to the void and neglects compassion does not reach the highest stage. But he who practices only compassion does not gain release from the toils of existence. He, however, who is strong in practice of both, remains neither in samskara, nor in nirvana. He neither remains in the void nor in the world. The final place that the game leads to is where you live fully consciously in all of it which is in nothing. You are eternal. You have finished perishing. There's no fear of death because you see it's just a transformation in an illusion. And yet, seeing all that, you still chop wood and carry water. Do you understand that? You still do your thing. You flow in harmony with the universe. You are beyond morality, and yet you're a totally moral being because that's the harmony of the universe. You see that to do anything with attachment is only creating more desire, which is creating more desire, which is creating more desire, which is keeping you in the game longer and longer and longer, keeping you in the illusion. And once you see through that, it can't help but fall away. What are you going to do? You get all caught up like, I think I'll become famous. Wow. Boy, am I going to become famous? And you're already laughing at yourself. Wow, man, am I going to go on that trip? Who am I kidding? All right, here I am, I'm famous. Wow, look at that, I'm famous, boy. Okay, that's that. Now what? I've got to become rich. You ever hang out with really rich people? Busy being rich. And finally, the day comes when they say, yeah, right, I'm rich. So that was what that was about. Then they're getting ready, perhaps, to go through the eye of the needle. Until then, not a chance of a snowball in hell. That final place of pure idea is the place where yin and yang exist. It's the place where duality exists. The first place into form from the formless, you come into the place where there is energy